So we're gonna get started. So I'm Joshua Levine Grader. I'm honored to be the executive director here at Friends Indeed. And first, we want to thank Han and Han for allowing us to use this space, and so Dale, you can pass that on. But just really grateful to be able to do this in person. We've done the state of FID in online for the last several years. It was an idea, it's a way to connect people, especially during COVID, another touch point, but thought it would be nice to offer folks an opportunity to come, especially those who are here in the room, our circle of friends donors. So we're really grateful. That means folks who give $1,000 a year or more. So thank you very much. Just want to welcome also, we have our board president here, Brett Schaefer. And we have one of our board members also, Tim Howitt is here, to care of our audit committee. And so for the people on Zoom, it's really nice to have you. And you can use the chat if you have questions. You'll see the format that after I finish the welcomes, we're going to have each of our program directors to come up and to talk about their program. We have some PowerPoint slides, and after each program director, be a chance to ask questions about that specific program or area. So obviously this doesn't happen all by itself. So I also want to thank our development team, Maria and Danny and Elise, for the space, for the food, for the wine, and the homemade charcuterie deal. So you can get up anytime and eat and drink. And so at Friends Indeed, we always like to tell stories, because we really feel that beyond the numbers and the statistics and the things that you're going to hear about our successes, it's really about the people. It's about the people that we serve. And so I want to just start with telling you this little story. So it's about a woman named Jean who lost her job and her housing during COVID, and she was only 30 years old. And she used to be self-sufficient. She was being self-sufficient. She became a regular guest at the women's room, and the staff said we'd see her hard at work in the library, where we have computers to go online. She said it was very helpful to have a quiet space where she could work on her job applications. And she could shower regularly, she could have her clothes laundered, and with that feeling and support, she felt ready and confident to interview for jobs. So with the staff encouragement, she also designed some business cards to add to her professionalism. And pursuing work has been as important as pursuing a roof over her head, being said. And she put a lot of work into a case manager and our housing navigator, and we're really happy that she's now in bridge housing, where she can get stabilized and be able to continue to work towards her goals. So we're really happy for Jean. So I'm not supposed to. We practice, but our senior director of programs, Ryan Greer, he's representing two programs whose directors couldn't be here. So please welcome Ryan.
Thank you, Joshua. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Yes, as I was introduced, my name is Ryan Greer. I'm the senior director of programs. My role at Friends Indeed is really just to provide as much support as I can to all of our 5 different programs, make sure that those program directors have as much support and the resources that they need to do a good job. So tonight, I'm going to be representing 2 of our 5 programs because those program directors couldn't be here tonight. So let's jump in. The women's room is the first of the 5 programs that we're going to cover. Some of you, I think, in this room might even be more familiar with the women's room than I am because you've spent so much time there. But this is the theme, at least for the 2 programs that I'm going to cover, is talking about community. There's a slide up here with lots of numbers, and I'll explain a little bit of that. But really the overarching story for many of our programs is the community that is built around those programs. And the women's room is a great example of that. The director for this program is Lindsay Reed. She can't be here tonight. She is actually on maternity leave. She just had her first child. And so we're excited to meet him and excited to welcome her back when she's returned from maternity leave. The interim director, Jenny Juarez, I talked to her a couple hours ago in preparation for this meeting. And I was just asking the gentleman, I said, hey, what, if you could be here tonight, what would you want people to know? And I was reminding her, we were talking about the numbers. Basically, I know this graph might be a little bit hard to see, but this is the trends of people attending the women's room over the last 4 years. So you can kind of just see these lines as they grow. The green line is the number of meals that are served every month at the women's room. So 3-4 years ago, we were serving about 150 meals a month. That has increased, that has increased, that has increased, and now we're serving close to 500 meals a month. As Jenny and I were talking, I reminded her, I said, hey, Jenny, you've had over 2,000 visits so far this year, or a third of the way through our fiscal year. That's more than they had in the entire year in 2022. So that program is exploding, which we're grateful for. It also presents unique challenges, of course, but we're just really happy to be able to provide that service to the women who need it. And she gave me a great example. Rabbi Joshua shared one story, one from the women's room. She hears two things a lot when they get new women who come to the women's room. One, they say somebody in a green shirt told me to get here, which is a reference to our outreach team wearing our Friends Indeed green shirts, and they're meeting folks on the street and saying, hey, if you need services, the women's room is open. But the other thing that she hears a lot is women meeting other women and saying, hey, come with me. I know a place that we can go to. And she told a story about a woman who's been going there a couple of weeks. She sleeps overnight on the bus. And a week or two ago, saw another woman also sleeping on the bus. And she said, hey, she went and introduced herself and said, hey, listen, I know you don't know me, but tomorrow morning when this program opens, I'm going to go to a place called the Women's Room with Friends Indeed. Come with me. You can get a shower, you can take a nap, you can get some meals, and she did. So that's one of the reasons why there's so many people right now is this word of mouth. So it's a great problem to have, but it's certainly just amazing to kind of to see. This past year, they had 308 unduplicated guests, meaning 308 total people that came multiple times throughout the year. 260 of those, almost 85%, were first-time guests who came that year. So that's pretty amazing, right? I mean, you think, who are the women who are using this program? If they've been there for years, and some of them have. I was looking at an attendance report from 2017, and I recognize names of women who are still going to the women's room. They've been housed, they have gained employment, they've moved, they've addressed a lot of the barriers that were preventing them from being housed, but this is still a super, super important part of their life. And so that's just something that I'm honored to be a part of. I think we're all honored to be a part of. We love that element of the women's room. Before I go to the next program, I think I'm going to open up for a couple questions. Was there a question that
You answered that question.
Oh, I already.
didn't know what
Perfect.
unduplicated that.
Yes. So 308 people visited 5,858 times throughout the last year. Yes.
Since I've never been there, so people just can hang out and take a shower, and what is it like?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Brian, can you just repeat the question so people?
Perfect. Yeah. The question was, what does the women's room offer? What kind of services do they provide? And it is a daytime drop-in access center for women, primarily women experiencing homelessness. So you can get registered there, you can get a meal there. They provide naps. There's a nap room that just opened up. So for a lot of women who it's a little too precarious or too dangerous for them to sleep at night, they stay awake at night and get a nap there during the day. They also do showers and laundries. They do on average 7 to 8 showers and 7 to 8 loads of laundry every single day that they're open. So it's a place for women to wash their clothes. kind of freshen up and just be a safe environment. One question on the side and then I'll come back.
Yeah, for the 4 years you're showing it, but it looks like there's a big drop off in meals every October.
Right, yes. And I don't know why that is. That's what the data says. There's little divots here. Good eye, yeah. But it's just one of those things that we've noticed. We're not particularly sure why.
It's really odd.
Yeah,
Computers, do you have computers?
yeah, thank you. You're presenting better than I am. Yes, there's also a computer room, a little library room, so.
There's
also
also
a bunch of
services that you bring in.
Exactly, yeah, they can access the internet there and use the computers. In addition to that, it's a great place to meet with any of our case managers. We have staff there on hand who, for those who are looking for additional services, can help fill out housing applications, can help get documentation, and help work towards obtaining other kinds of housing as well. Janine, yeah.
Can you just tell us more about the kitchen, the new kitchen and?
Yes. Oh, man, okay. Sorry, Mary, I'm trying to keep it under 5 minutes, but these questions are great. So the women's room also just recently completed a renovation project. It was pretty extensive and the team were troopers to be able to keep things open and work in the midst of all the renovations, but there's a lovely new refurbished kitchen, new stainless steel counters, things have kind of been moved around and put into new places. The main kind of activity area has been refurbished, the downstairs changing room outside of the showers and the showers themselves, a lot of things have gotten a bit of a facelift, which is looking great. So yeah, it's so much nicer now. Jenny, who's managing the program, says, it's great that everything has every item has a place and everything has a purpose, and the women kind of know this is the room for this is the room for that, et cetera, et cetera.
Makes it possible.
Thank you. And we serve a lot more people. Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and move one more question and I'll move on. Yeah.
And women use this as an address for themselves?
Great question. Yeah.
Field address?
The question is, can women use it as an address as well? And some women do, yeah, if they're trying to obtain certain documents, they can get some things mailed there. It kind of depends on the staff discretion and what they're working on, but they do, yeah. Okay, let's jump into the next program, which is the Bad Weather Shelter. So again, a program that I think many of you might be familiar with. So the program director for this is Laura Van Alstine. She has been part of the Bad Weather Shelter for decades. I think she volunteered 15, maybe 20 years at the shelter. So we have been managing this. Friends Indeed has been managing the Bad Weather Shelter in the city of Pasadena for many decades. She's been a pretty important part of that. A brief history. This program more or less shut down, or I would say looked very different over the COVID years. So for 3 or 4 years, we didn't have a site. The housing department of the city of Pasadena was looking for a site for this. Very difficult time finding that. And then this past season, managed to find a site at Trinity Lutheran Church, which is located near the Vines, just south of the 210 freeway. So last season was our first season coming back to full bad weather shelter mode. Again, lots of information here, lots of numbers. I can go through some of that, but the thing that I really want to emphasize again on this theme of community is the relationship. Again, Laura is a good example, as she's been there and been a part of that program for so long. Her daughter started volunteering there, I think when she was probably 16, and her daughter is now on staff as a registered nurse and supports the program as well. There are folks who wait every year in anticipation of the bad weather shelter opening, and many of those folks we house and then are moved on into permanent housing, and then those who aren't, we invite them back next year. A couple things I think just that I think in particular are really interesting with the bad weather shelter. The average age tends to be about 50. That's the average age. A lot of times we think we might have an idea of who is using an overnight shelter, who isn't, but it tends to be folks right around that age. Another kind of key element of the program is that it is weather activated, meaning it's not open every night. It's only open on certain nights when the temperature falls under 40 degrees, or if it's raining or very windy. And so that's something that we coordinate very closely with the Pasadena Housing Department, coordinate with the church, with logistics, coordinate with food providers, we coordinate with staff, and then we let folks know. And again, just like the women's room, a question that we get a lot is, well, how do people find out about the bad weather shelter? And we have a lot of mechanisms for that. There's a number you can call, there's information on our website. But time and time again, the common answer is somebody told me about it, word of mouth. So when the season begins, it might be a small trickle, but then it spreads. We've had multiple times where somebody has shown up on a night that it's open and said, are you going to be here all night? We say, yep, it's an overnight shelter. They say, okay. You know, I have 5 more friends who are back in the park. Wait for us. We say, okay, we're here all night. And we'll go and we'll get their friends and we'll come back. So it's fun to see how that community works out for each other. Some questions on the bad weather shelter?
Yeah, who is it that sets the parameters for when it can open? Is that malleable?
Great question. Yeah, the question was who sets the parameters on the bad weather shelter is activated. That is basically, it's very data driven. LASA, the LA Homeless Services Authority, takes that data. It might even come from a national level, like HUD or I want to say maybe even FEMA does, but the purpose of the shelter is hypothermia prevention. So there's a lot of additional services that we provide, including case management, light wound care, connections, street outreach, and other services. But the primary goal is to ensure that people who are sleeping on the streets of Pasadena aren't dying from the cold or from the rain. In particular, those two things combined. So the metric that they use is 40 degrees, 40% chance of rain. If it's more than an inch, 40, 40, 40. Yeah. So it's an easy one to remember, but that's set at a national level. Yeah.
Is it like a large dormitory or?
Great question. Yeah. The question is what does the shelter look like? It's hosted at Trinity Lutheran Church. They have kind of a large gymnasium space. And so there's space in its current format for 54 individuals. We kind of, I don't know if there's any photos here, but you know, the cots are kind of lined up like you might imagine a Red Cross, you know, something like that. The hope this year with some additional augmentation that we're going to do is we can fit 70 people. So that's fingers crossed what we're hoping for when it opens up this season. Another question?
Do you interview people that come in and do the street outreach right there?
Yeah, so the enrollment process, yeah, folks, you know, it's a very low barrier shelter. It's a no barrier shelter, really. We try to keep the rules as flexible as we can, while also ensuring that folks are safe there every night. So, you know, there's no, you don't have to. You don't have to present a certain way, or you know, we have folks who show up and they might be very high or they might be very drunk or something like that, but they also know it's a very safe place. And we say, listen, you know, this is where the rubber meets the road. If you can abide by the guidelines, if you're here to sleep and you know, take care of yourself, great, you're welcome. If not, you know, then we're gonna have to address that. So the enrollment process is very simple though. I'm just kind of go over program rules. We get them enrolled. So folks are there's something called the Homeless Management Information System. So we explain what that is, get consent for that information to be gathered, and that kind of helps outreach teams coordinate and provide services to folks who need them. One more question, maybe, then I'll turn it over.
The showers, do they have any privacy, or is that pretty?
Good question. Yeah. So a question about showers at the bad weather shelter. We currently don't offer any showers for the bad weather shelter participants. There's restrooms, but showers is a very, very complicated thing, and the facilities just aren't particularly set up for it. So maybe one day we hope to have that, but at this current state we don't. So yeah.
Our church has gone and provided meals at these. Does that happen every night that it's open, that some group comes and provides meals?
Great question. Yeah, a question about meals and how volunteer groups can be involved. In the past, that's happened more frequently, and in its current phase, the kitchen at this church doesn't have the correct facilities to be able to cook and prepare meals there. So we contract with an organization that provides meals and we just heat them up. But we still do look for volunteer groups, communities, to help serve the meal, help with management, enrollments, hang out with both, things like that. We do hope, probably not this season, but a season coming up that we'll be able to get back to a full kitchen as well, so.
And they get supper and breakfast.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. I want to introduce you.
I think that was wrong. Isn't he supposed to introduce me?
Are we messing up the?
No, there's no we on that.
I'll let you.
So Stacy, wherever you are, I'll introduce you, we'll be good. But I'm Tim Nisler. I am the Food Pantry Program Director or Director of the Food Pantry, and I've been that for almost 12 years. I have no idea what statistics are going to show up here. I wrote some, but I don't know if everyone knows. Excellent. About the Food Pantry. So briefly, the Food Pantry is set up like a neighborhood market. So people come and they pick the groceries, they shop. There are some rules about how many items they can take, and it's based on family size and what we have in the way of fresh fruits and vegetables and meat and protein and bread, all of those things. We are open Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Doesn't matter which day they come, but they can only come one time a week. And so we will open at 10, close at 3. On Thursdays, we close at 1. We will get as many households through there as possible. Looking at this, yeah, so I don't even, is this all just how far back?
Other side.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so just to give you an idea, when I started, we would average about 230 households a week. This is showing 613, something like that. Right now, on some of the data I have, we're averaging 613 households a week, where a year ago at the same time was about 538 households a week.
Wow.
The vast majority of the people are from Pasadena, Altadena, so about 67, 68% of the people. Then another 5 or 6% are the immediate neighboring cities, and then the remaining are anybody who needs food. That's providing some challenges for us, because if you've been to Friends Indeed, our space is not a big space. And so we're having to look at how we can manage that for the future. But right now, we're averaging 1.15 million in-kind donations. That's food that we don't have to buy, that we get from people just doing food drives, that we get from the LA Food Bank, that we get from Trader Joe's when we pick up, grocery outlet, all these places, Food Forward. Yes, ma'am.
Is that per year or?
That number right there, yeah, right over here, that's per year. That's for fiscal year 24. She was asking, is that in-kind amount per year? And yes, for fiscal year 24, it is. Some of the things here that are great, well, lots of things are great. But this is an interesting number. 800,000 pounds of food we received and distributed. That comes out to this number. The meals provided is driven from that. And there's a whole Feeding America calculation, but they basically say 1.2 pounds of food equals a meal. So in the last fiscal year, we were able to provide 667,163 meals. I counted every one. But yes, right. And it's going up. So it's amazing. We have over 105 regular volunteers. They volunteer more or less weekly or every other week. And they help us set up, get the bag the produce, so that when if you were to come through, you'd be able to grab the bag already made of apples if you wanted that, or potatoes or things like that. We have people checking everyone in. We have people helping lift baskets. Look, we have people in their 90s that are coming to get food in a food pantry. And on just a personal, that's just silly. I don't know if that's a friend indeed take, but it seems like it's pretty silly that somebody in their 90s would need to come and get food from a food pantry. And they do, and we're there for them. Josh started with the stories, Ryan with the stories. I'm gonna go with the community story. I like to look at it in is 3 communities. When people come to the food pantry, they wait out front while we're getting everything ready, and a lot of them know each other. And they built friendships, they brought people from there where they live. But they've also made friends with people they see there all the time. It's very interesting. It's a very diverse community. And you see these people hanging out that you go, I don't know that they'd be hanging out if they weren't right here. And when they see somebody new, they point out, hey, put your name over here. No, they'll be coming out. They're gonna do the lottery, and that's a way to help us keep people from coming at 5:30 in the morning to be first. So you got the outside community of people coming to get food. Then you have the community of staff and volunteers who are working to get the place ready to go. And again, a lot of people have come from different walks of life. Some have been there 15 years, some have been there 3 years, some came before the pandemic, during the pandemic, after. And it's amazing because they create friendships in the spirit of service. And so we've got the outside waiting to come get food. You have the other side getting ready to distribute the food. And the third one is not really a separate group, but I always refer to it that way. The third group is when we open the doors and the 2 groups come together. I've known people that come to get food the whole time I've been there. Some of the people, their situation is not going to change. They're retired, they're on a fixed income. Maybe they don't get paid a lot and they're trying to support their family. And the folks are just like all of us. They just need a little bit of assistance. And so when they come, we know them. We know what some people like. We know they know what we like. I have a Christmas tree ornament that is on my tree still from a girl who's now a junior in college. Her family's been coming since she was probably in about 5th grade. One year she made me an ornament, and inside it just said, "Thanks for helping my family." And it's still on my Christmas tree. Well, not now because I don't have it up, but you get the point. Another time, one of my staff overheard a pantry community member asking one of the volunteers how her dad was doing. They had obviously had enough conversations that was a key, that was something that the pantry community member knew to ask. And so I don't know what else I got on here. I printed this up. We were having a conversation. I'm like, oh, I got my statistics and but it really is about the community, and I'm a fortunate person to be able to direct this program. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. Yes. Where is it? Yes, that's great. Where Friends Indeed is located at 444 East Washington Boulevard. We're on the southeast corner of Washington and Los Robles. Have you ever driven by there and wondered what it was? Yes, so if you are part of those 2 programs, you're right there. And I found Friends Indeed by driving by there all the time, and I went, what is that place?
Those people gathered around.
Right, and somebody finally told me, and I said, well, let me volunteer, because I started as a volunteer, as many of us did, that are on the staff there, which I think is pretty fascinating too. But yes, same place as the women's room. Yes, sir.
What does the term unique household mean?
What does the term unique household means? So in the fiscal year, if we counted every household that came one time, so let's say I counted everybody in here once, whatever that number is, that'd be the unique household. But if you came every week, and Tish came every other week, and Ryan came once a month, those go up into client visits. They're total there, but counting everyone once. Says that we have basically served almost 3,000 households. Individual households. Yeah.
You do deliveries at home, how many are you doing and what's the criteria for that?
Yes,
A 90-year-old presumably and maybe other.
the question is, do we do home deliveries? And what is the criteria? Yes, we do home deliveries. Kind of started during the pandemic when we had a lot of homebound. We do about 40, between, volunteers maybe taking food to their neighbors, to other volunteers taking to a set of people that reached out to us during the pandemic and said, can we get food? We're at 40. I think that's probably about what we can handle. Josh has heard me say this a lot. If somebody asked, we could potentially do more. Yeah, so some of them, a lot of them are older, have some issues getting out and about, so we do that. Any other? Okay, so oh, by the way, we are giving out turkeys on Sunday to everyone that got registered. We do that with the Pasadena JCs. We had 400 people sign up for turkeys. So we'll be doing that this Sunday. And in December, this is the 10th year of our Christmas for the Kids event, which we partnered with Romans and community members to be able to provide kids in the food pantry with Christmas gifts. That's what we got coming up on the horizon in the food pantry. Yes?
I just wondered if there is any process to determine need, or it's just, I say I need food, you believe me.
I get that question a lot. So how do we determine need? So how do I know that you're trustworthy and should be coming to get food? Well, we do have a process of registering people. We ask for IDs, something with your address. If you receive any income, how much per month, what's the source? A lot of the food we get is from a USDA program through the LA Food Bank called the Emergency Food Assistance Program. And there's guidelines for income and things like that. So let's say you come the first time, we ask this stuff. There's 4 people in your family, so we want an ID for each person. If you don't have it, I still want you to get food. But let's say you just want free food. Well, there's some things that are going to happen, and you don't look like you want just free food. But if you did, we would you're going to have to wait. First of all, you're going to have to sign in. I'm going to tell you, I'm sorry, you can't take 2 cans of tuna today because we don't have a lot of tuna. Where there's going to be limits on things. If you take over the limit, we're going to say, I'm sorry, because we're serving 613 a week. And then you're going to go. But let's say you leave with 25 pounds of food. If you want to wait and go through all that to get free food, I don't think you're going to do it very often. But the way I look at it the most is if there's 1 or 2 people out of 10 that's like that, I'm serving the other 8 or 9. That's on the person who we let get the food. If that's what they want to do, that's on them. Because we're serving a bigger community that I know that's it. So I'm sure there are probably people that maybe don't need it, but you know what? The others do. And that's who we're there for. Any other questions? That's it. Stacy Cutshaw is the director of Eviction Prevention and Remedy Program. See, how you doing?
You got her name wrong, so.
Oh, I got the wrong one.
That's what happens, you don't follow the rules.
So I'm Stacy McDarrell. I'm director of the Eviction Prevention and Remedy Program. I've been in that position a little over 2 years now. And we can go ahead. I have lots of slides and lots of information, which I will present as dynamically and entertainingly as possible. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about what EPRA does and how we do it. So EPRA provides rental support to individuals and families at risk for eviction to prevent them from becoming homeless. Essentially, we pay people's rent so they don't get evicted. Households must fall below the 50% area median income category, currently live in the city of Pasadena, and demonstrate that they do not have the resources to pay their rent. Understanding that each situation is unique, we vary funding and case management to meet the needs of the clients that we serve. Next slide, please. Okay, so currently our program staff is comprised of 2 full-time staff members, myself and Marlene Martinez, who is our assistant director. We have 1 half-time Masters of Social Work intern named Gina Lovato, who's awesome and is working with us currently on a 1-year commitment. And then we have an awesome volunteer, 1 volunteer named Emily Montague, who assists us with data entry and logging requests. Next, thank you. So this is an overview of our fiscal year 24 program statistics, where we landed. So we assisted.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we assisted 97 households. Am I moving around too much? No, you're good. Sure, I'm doing something. Okay. So 97 households were prevented from becoming homeless because of our assistance. That represents 196 individuals who received assistance. And that represents a total of approximately 274 months of rental assistance provided, for a dollar amount of over $344,000 spent on rental, move-in, and utility assistance. And that averages out to about $3,551 per household. Next slide. Okay, so here are some of our program developments. We aim now to provide a minimum of about 4 months rental assistance per household to alleviate financial stress and better stabilize the monthly budget. So one of the things that we're working toward in EPRA is balancing quantity of service versus quality. So, you know, how do we spend the money that we have on clients in order to assist people in the best way possible and provide the best outcome? Our staff works creatively with tenants and landlords to develop payment plans, to provide client incentives, and maximize resources to achieve rent sustainability. And EPRA has increased our commitment to case management sessions in areas of budgeting and problem solving to help clients manage their household expenses after our assistance ends. And next. So here's some of the trends that we're seeing in the requests and the clients that we serve. Our program continues to receive a large volume of requests for assistance. So EPRA logs about 90 inquiries per month. This represents an 80% increase in monthly requests since 2023. Our staff works to respond to each request within 10 days, whether or not the household is eligible for funding. And our current program spending is slightly more than anticipated at this point in the fiscal year, which is consistent with the high demand. Next. All right, so a couple conclusions, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. Our program continues to support families with children, as well as single adult households. Approximately 20% of the clients that we assist are over the age of 55, and this population continues to grow. So recent studies reveal that almost 50% of the homeless population is over age 50, and EPRA is receiving more requests from seniors who are living on a fixed income and are unable to afford their monthly rent. We're also noticing an increased need from single older adults who are acting as caregivers for aging parents and having difficulty paying their monthly rent. So that's EPRA in an overview. Are any questions? Yes.
So what happens to a family or a single person whom you've been assisting for 4 months, 3 or 4 months? What happens then?
I can't always have an answer to what happens. Ideally, the goal is to provide financial assistance to help a family or a household navigate advantage of some kind of a financial hardship and get them back on track to rent sustainability. So we will talk to them about budgeting, financial planning. We'll try to get them access to other services, find ways to augment their income. You know, if the reality is that they're in a rental unit that is not sustainable or they can't afford, we'll talk to them about the possibility of coming up with some other option. So ideally, people come up with a solution and we help alleviate that crisis so that we can problem solve together and they can come up with a solution for the long term. The goal is long-term rent sustainability. Yeah. Yes.
So people in the community who own property contact you and say, gee, I have a unit or two only available. How can we work together?
We can, yes. I mean, so we don't actually do any kind of housing navigation for clients. But we certainly could refer them to a location or refer them to other services that provide that. I mean, we do work closely both with the tenants and with the landlords. We do get referrals from landlords if they have tenants who are struggling to pay their rent, but they want to work with the tenant. And so through that, we also develop relationships with landlords who we can try to refer clients to. Yeah.
Are you screening applicants for those that are most likely?
Repeat the Stacy.
Well,
Can you repeat the question?
yeah, so I'm sorry. Yeah, so the question is, are we screening applicants for those who are most likely to succeed?
Succeed.
To succeed. Are we screening the applicants based on the likelihood that we're going to have a successful outcome? Okay, yes and no. We want to try to assist as many people as we possibly can. What I will say is, we're helping people who basically have received a pay or quit notice from their landlord. If you are already being evicted, it's unlikely that our support is going to be able to assist. It's unlikely that we're going to be able to intervene in a situation where there's already an eviction in process. So you have to be on good terms with your tenant, with the landlord, and we're looking at clients where the only barrier is an inability to pay rent, not that there's some dispute or discrepancy with the landlord. So we're only going to assist people in those cases. So sometimes we'll get a client who the situation is precarious. We may provide a couple months of assistance in order to buy them some time, again, to try to problem solve and figure out how they're going to be able to be rent sustainable going forward. So. Okay, I'm good. All right, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tish. I'm the Director of Street Outreach and Housing. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that department. Speak up, please. All right. So the Street Outreach and Housing Department, we target people that are experiencing unsheltered homelessness in the city of Pasadena. So what we mean by that is people that are literally outside, so in encampments, in their vehicles, on the sidewalk, in tents and whatnot, but not sheltered settings. We target a demographic, we call it high barrier, high acuity. And what we mean by that is people who have a lot of things going on in their lives. So sometimes that's mental health issues, sometimes it's substance use, legal issues, etc. That's our target demographic. Sometimes we're going out into the field organically just to look for people to enroll. Sometimes we're enrolling people because we have an outreach request that we're following up on. When we go out into the community, we have supplies with us to meet their immediate basic needs, hygiene, food, water, clothing, whatnot. That also helps us to break the ice with some of them. Once we do that, we offer them some of our other services that are listed here. We help them with documentation assistance. Many of our clients come in and they don't have an ID or a birth certificate or a social security card. We help them get those things, offset the cost, provide transportation assistance to do that if necessary. We do a lot of supportive service referrals. As I mentioned, we have a lot of barriers. So anything that's a housing barrier, we try to help them address. So if that's a mental health referral, a substance use referral, an employment referral, a legal referral, any of those things we assist with. We also have a limited amount of motels that we can provide some folks to help get them indoors and off the streets. We provide move-in assistance for our clients that we house and are moving into units. We can help them with the deposits, sometimes their first month's rent. We have housing navigators who do that. And then now we also help them with life skills, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So this is just a little bit of recap of some of the highlights from last fiscal year. So last year, we got a large health-related grant from the Una Health Foundation. So this was really nice because it allowed us to expand our health-related services quite a bit. So as part of that, we were able to hire a mental health specialist for the team. We can help people with treatment costs for medical treatment or substance use treatment. We can help people purchase health-related supplies, things like canes and walkers and whatnot. And we can also purchase harm reduction supplies with that. Another new thing is the department structure. So when we came on board, it was just me and all the frontline staff, but our department is expanding quite a bit. So we added another tier. So now we have 2 program managers. We have the mental health specialist that I mentioned. She's our outreach program manager. And we also have a housing navigation program manager who's a substance use specialist. In addition to the managers, we have a new position now, which is harm reduction specialist. Intensive case management services, ICMS, that's basically a fancy way of just saying case management for people who are in permanent housing. That's a new program that we introduced last year. And the reason for that is that we were finding that a lot of our clients who are moving into housing were struggling with that transition from the street to housing. Some of them had never paid rent on their own before, had never set up their utilities, didn't know how to write a check, how to buy groceries, things like that. So now we have one of our case managers is an ICMS worker who helps people with those various life skills to help with their housing retention and hopefully reduce recidivism. We have expanded our MSW intern program. So I'm an MSW and LCSW, so I supervise all of the MSWs in organization. We have usually between like 2 and as many as 7 MSW interns with us in all of our departments, which is quite nice because that we're able to expand our services with their assistance and along with being able to help with their learning as well. As far as some of our outcomes from last year, we served 332 individuals. And what I mean by served is that's the number of people that we had enrolled in our program at any one time. Of those, we were able to shelter 168 individuals, a significant portion of our families. So our team does serve both adults and families now. And what we mean by sheltered is either temporary or permanent housing. So that's the number combined. And now that we have an additional mental health worker, we were able to do 166 mental health assessments. So this is just kind of our revised department structure. You can see here, myself, and then we have our 2 program managers, and then the team members that they supervise, and then our collection of interns. This is the general flow that people move through our department, right? So one thing that's really unique about our department is that people can go from the street all the way until they're stabilized in housing without having to go to another agency or to move to a different department. So we have our outreach workers, which is one portion of the team that do all the front end things. So they do the initial enrollment. We have a survey that we use, which is like a standardized assessment tool that gives us an idea of the person's level of vulnerability. They help obtain their ID, their proof of income, do any initial referrals for the supportive services that I mentioned. And then once that front end is done, they do a warm handoff to the housing navigation side of the team. So the housing navigators will pick up the case from there. They will help obtain birth certificates, social security cards. They help them with budgeting. They create comprehensive housing plans with the clients that include SMART goals of how to work through their different housing barriers. They'll do any additional referrals because we're consistently doing needs assessments because situations change and new needs might arise. We do housing location, which includes taking people to like look at units, advocating with landlords, helping them with their applications and all of that. And then, as I mentioned, ICMS, which is the intensive case management, is kind of like the 3rd tier of our program, which we just added on last year.
Is that intensive because it's small caseloads?
Yes, and more hands-on. Yeah, so it's like a client meeting. Most case managers, they might spend like just an hour with a client. ICMS worker might spend longer than that, like physically going with people and teaching them how to use the bus or physically teaching them how to buy groceries and whatnot.
Can I ask a question? During the outreach period where they've made the contact with the individual who's in the street, for example, and You're starting to develop a relationship and, you know, figure out paperwork, that sort of thing. Where are the individuals housed during that period? Where do they go and how long does that period take?
Sure, so it's gonna depend on the scenario, so a lot of it is up to what the client's open to. So some of them will remain outdoors, while they're receiving case management. If they are interested and if they do qualify, we'll help them get into interim housing, which is essentially, temporary housing, like some type of a shelter. Not all clients are open, at the time to go into shelter, so if they choose to skip that step, I think that's up to them to do. We also have, sometimes we're able to put them in our motels, that I was mentioning, so sometimes they're there. We will also do, referrals, if there are, you know, other programs that have, resources where they can stay, we'll do outside referrals as well. But it just depends, on what's available at the time, because that ebbs and flows. It depends on, a lot of times, like if you're a female, for example, who's elderly, like you're more likely to be able to get into temporary housing than like a young male, you know, so there's a lot of factors.
And those who are out in the street, you sort of know where to find them, more or less, they're sort of in the same area usually?
Yeah, so a lot of times they'll congregate in, like, we call them hotspots or like encampments where they'll, and it's often you'll find that it's around where they receive services. That they'll congregate there, but we usually just keep abreast of where they stay. So we physically go out and find them, so even if they don't have a phone number, like we will go out and look for people at the places where we know they're like last known location where they typically reside. Okay, so this is what's going on so far, some of the new things. So I mentioned motels a little bit. So we have a program that's called the Pathway Motel Program. And so before, we would just have an average of 4 rooms booked at any time for clients to stay in. We would just book on an as-needed basis. This last year, we have an MOU in place now with one of our motel programs, local motel partners, excuse me, where we have 6 rooms that are allocated to us year round. And so we're able to put people in those rooms, they stay in those rooms ideally until they are housed. And so it's operating essentially like an interim housing program or a shelter. So that's very exciting. And our hope is that over the years, we can continue to get more rooms and expand that program. This next one is brand new. So at Trinity Lutheran Church here in Pasadena, they have a safe parking program. And what that means is clients who have vehicles can sleep on premises safely without fear of being arrested or towed or whatnot, right? So Friends Indeed is now the new service provider for that location. So clients who were sleeping at that site in their vehicles are receiving case management now from my team, so we can assist with trying to house them. So we're always working to expand partnerships within the community in any way we can. These are just 2 examples. So we have an agreement in place now with the National Charity League. They recently had some of the young women in that program build some hygiene kits for us. And we are now on their volunteer list for them to come in office regularly to build kits for us. We also have a new buddy relationship with Kaiser. That started with one of their med students who applied for a grant to be able to buy hygiene for us. Just last week, some of the medical students also came in the office and built kits for us. And what we're hoping is next is that some of their med students and one of their physicians is interested in going out with our team to do some street medicine. So we're working on that as well. We continue to do comprehensive training. I'm really big on training. So we've been training even the outreach side of the team to understand housing navigation a little better. Part of the reason is because we have a lot of people who are matched to housing right now. So we want to make sure that everybody on the team understands the housing process and what that looks like and can explain that to clients. We also want to make sure that we're working in a way that is ethical. So we're doing mandated reporting trainings and risk assessment trainings and things like that as well. As far as outcomes so far, as of a couple days ago, we had sheltered 179 individuals from 148 households, and that's not including, that's served. So we served 179 individuals and 148 households in street outreach, and then an additional 13 individuals from ICMS. So far, we've sheltered 30 individuals from 27 households, and that's 15 permanent placements and 12 temporary placements. And in addition to those numbers, we have an additional 20 people who are actually matched to housing right now that we're just waiting for their move-in dates to be ready.
4 months. 4 months.
Yes.
Average age of these people?
I don't know the average age. I could pull that information for you if you need it, but we do have a significant portion of clients that are elderly.
You said you do mental health evaluation now, but what happens after you've done the evaluation?
So we do mental health evaluations for a few different reasons. So sometimes, there's an assessment that needs to be done for their housing. So sometimes clients that are moving into permanent supportive housing, which is housing that comes with case management supports, right? They need to have a disability verification to do that. Sometimes it's a physical disability, sometimes it's a mental health disability. So if it's a mental health disability, anybody who's a licensed mental health clinician can sign off on that. And I'm an LCSW, so I do those for the team. So it's just a document that I need to complete. I meet with them, verify that they have some type of mental health disability, and that assists them with being able to be housed in permanent supportive housing. Sometimes we also have to do assessments for the purposes of referring them to mental health services. Like we do DMH referrals sometimes that you're required to fill out a document that includes their diagnosis for the referral. So usually it's either to help them with their housing or to connect them to mental health services.
You know, if you have an inn with Centennial, place, they have 200 some odd rooms.
I wouldn't, we have put people in Centennial Place before. Yeah, it is a very large facility. They are actually renovating at the moment, so they're not really putting anybody new in it. Yeah, there's some like construction going on. So most of the people who are living there, they've actually moved out to another facility while they.
I was wondering, do your services overlap? Are they different than a Union Station? Like, do you have a separate, different mission, or you're just, you know, there's a lot of need to go around?
Yeah, I would say for the most part, it's the same mission. So I think that's how I treat it, that we're different teams serving the same city for the same goal. So I didn't mention it here, but we do quite a bit of collaboration with the other teams. So every month, my team goes out with some of the other teams that also serve Pasadena, including one of the Union Stations MDD teams, like the port team, you know, just several of the teams all go out together. Part of that is just to network, to share resources. So like sometimes I do disability verifications for the other teams. Sometimes they assist us with things. Union Station is also what's designated as like the lead agency, like in the service area. Like so most of San Gabriel Valley, they're the lead agency. So because of that, they do have control of certain resources that we coordinate with them to access those resources.
Explain the system that tracks every individual assigned an individual to particular. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that sometimes we're doing organic outreach, sometimes we're following up on an outreach request. So what I mean by outreach request is that in Los Angeles, there's a portal called the LA HOP portal. So it's countywide, anybody can use it. It's la-hop.org. And anybody in the community can go on there and put in an outreach request. So a person can do it for themselves. It could be a business owner, a homeowner, anybody who sees somebody who they think needs outreach assistance. It's used just for individuals, so not for families, but if there's an individual, like whether you know the person or not, you can just say, I saw so-and-so, this is their description, and they were at this intersection. Right, and so the outreach coordinator who works for Union Station, and she serves the whole San Gabriel Valley, she receives those requests, she vets them, and then she triages them to the appropriate team. So, for example, if you put in the request that the person has mental health concerns, they're going to assign that request to somebody like a team with a mental health specialist, or if the person has health concerns, we'll try to assign it to somebody, you know, maybe there's a physical health specialist on the team, etc. And then, so Friends in Need receives some of those requests. The other teams that serve Pasadena receive some of those requests as well. Once we get the request, we have about 72 business hours to start following up. So we will physically go out and look for that person. If there's a phone number, we will call the number. Often there's not, but we will physically go out and try to locate that person to offer them services. If we don't find them that first attempt on a different day, we will make a second attempt to find. But it's a very nice resource. That's my preferred method of referral because it's streamlined. People are vetting it. You know, so it's yeah. We want to spread the word about that. Any other questions?
So you have heard from all of my colleagues, all of the wonderful work that we do, and I get to tell you how we care for the dollars that you give us. I am Kenyatta Wilson, and it is my honor and pleasure to serve as controller at Friends Indeed. I originated this position last year in December. Our leadership decided to transition our accounting functions from outsourced consultants to full-time in-house, and so here I am. It is my responsibility to make sure that every precious gift that is bestowed upon Friends Indeed is properly and appropriately accounted for, and making sure that we do that through transparency and good old-fashioned accuracy. So, to that end, it is my pleasure to share with you that within the last 8 months, our independent auditors have rendered unqualified, zero-finding opinions on our financial statements for the 6 months ending June 30, 2023, and for our fiscal year ending June 30, 2024. So, I stand here assuring you that your donations are indeed in good hands and cared for. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Maria Velasco. I'm the Senior Director of Development, and I've been at Friends Indeed for 4 years now. I also originated my position. We've been growing quite a bit, especially in the past 4 years. And I'm here to talk a little bit about fundraising efforts from individuals and from special events. So here's our fancy numbers and charts page. And just so you know, all of these numbers and charts can be found in your annual impact report. It is on our website. We, as Kenyatta said, we try and be transparent as possible. So we list all of our 990s, all of our audits once they're ready, all of our audits and all of our annual reports on the website for your viewing at any time. Where we ended FY24, you can see on this pie chart, about 50% of our funding comes from individuals and special events, and about 50% of our funding comes from government grants, government contracts, and foundation grants. This, in my professional opinion, is a very healthy mix of funding sources. It gets really scary when you have like 90% of your funding is just government contracts, and then what if those don't come through again the next year? So we really like to see from a development perspective, diversity. Some of the other numbers that I want to point out, we had just over 1,600 donors last year. As a trend, that's about 100 donors more than we had the prior 2 years. We also, in those numbers, saw 542 first-time donors to Friends Indeed. We love that number. And 322 of the 1,654 donors, 322 are Circle of Friends donors. So those donors are giving $1,000 or more during the fiscal year. I also want to mention, as Tim mentioned earlier on his food pantry slide, the food pantry had brought in $1.15 million in-kind donations. Friends Indeed as a whole brought in about $1.3 million in-kind donations. So on top of the food, another about $150,000 worth of donated items. And we're anticipating that number this year to be probably closer to $1.4 million of in-kind donations. Some of the trends I want to mention so far, really at the end of FY24 and then this fiscal year so far. So one of the trends we're really seeing is a higher number of donor advised funds donations coming through, DAS. And donor advised funds are a tool for donors to be able to make their charitable contributions to, for example, Schwab, Fidelity, Benevity. There's a lot of different corporation vehicles to make those donor advised funds. And then when the donor wants, they can then give out those funds. And so this is a vehicle we're seeing very high trending. Last year alone, we saw $200,000 come through. So that's
Of the 1.14 million, about 200,000 of that was from donor advised fund charitable giving from our donors. We're also seeing trending toward monthly recurring donations. Last year alone, we saw about $100,000 come through from monthly recurring donors. So those donors sign up, myself included, for any size donation that gets taken out on the date of the month of your choosing. So if you'd like to give $100 a month, that's a really easy way to get to be a Circle of Friends member. We're also seeing a higher number of conversations around planned giving, legacy gifts, looking to leave Friends Indeed in their will or trust. Any sort of beneficiary giving through life insurance or as you set up a will or trust. So we are seeing that trend higher as well. All of this, by the way, this is all good. These are all very good trends that I'm very happy to see as the Senior Director of Development. We also, just this past year and a half or so, launched a Young Professionals Council that's in coordination with the board. Jeff Salcido on the board is heading that. And we have a few dozen people that have signed up to join our Young Professionals Council that'll have their first official meeting in person in January. See if I missed anything. Yes, one of the things, two last things for me. One is that we were lucky enough to work with a really wonderful donor of ours who allowed us to expand our development efforts. And so when I came on 4 years ago, I was a solo department. And now I'm lucky enough to have 2 development associates working with me, Elise and Danny, who are truly exceptional. And we also have been graced with some additional part-time help for our grants officer. Marty now has an additional person helping her to help find all of these wonderful foundation grants and help with government contracts. And then the last thing I'll mention is, as a whole, our development department really focuses on mission-based fundraising. And what we mean by that is, you notice we don't have a gala. And sometimes I get questions about this, but I actually don't get very many about it because I actually think our donor base is really happy that we're not spending so much money on a big fancy something. Our donors, all of you for the most part, I've actually had many conversations with many of you, really appreciate that we're trying to put our funding right back into the programs and be wise with our donor dollars, as Kenyatta mentioned. And so our mission-based fundraising events that we do, we really try and focus on 2 ways. One is making sure, oh, Pete, hi, Pete. One is making sure that the event that we're doing focuses on one of our programs. For example, Cooking for a Cause in conjunction with the Food Pantry, Stories from the Street, showing movies about homelessness. So that's part 1. And part 2 is making sure that there's an educational aspect so that everyone that attends the event feels like they walked away with a little more than they came with. So that's how we're running fundraising at Friends Indeed. We feel really strongly about it and we hope that you do too. And I personally thank each of you for all of your support to really make these programs possible. These are incredible colleagues I have and I'm humbled to be up here with them. Thank you.
Your 542 first-time donors, you asked them, why did you start donating to us?
Yes, we do. We send out a survey to our donors for all those that give email addresses to us to ask how our first-time donors came to us. A lot of the times, for the most part, we see an array of answers and we let people check more than one box. So a lot of people drove by the building and always wondered what it was. A lot of people have seen the lawn signs where it says, I support Friends Indeed. Social media, they're part of a congregation and Rabbi Joshua went and gave the sermon there. So it's really a varied approach. And I would say from a marketing standpoint, that stands true. We see from a marketing standpoint that most people need to see something 7 times before responding. That's even more these days now because how quickly we dissect information. And so it's very likely that they saw us in 7 different ways before making their first donation. Thank you.
Good thing you hear from me a lot. In other ways, so I'm not gonna keep us too much longer, because I know we're a little over time, but, as Mary has said, I will echo that, I get to work with all these amazing, people each and every day, and with our dedicated board of directors, to execute our mission, which is focused on compassion and dignity, and making sure that we are helping as many of those people experiencing homelessness and vulnerability as much as we can. So I want to end with just quickly two things. One is Marty's not here, but our grants are an important part, as you saw. And one way that you can help is if you know of a foundation and you have a connection there, to let us know. It's always good to have an inside connection for especially foundations, be they family foundations or major foundations, because a lot of these places are by invitation only, or you have to, know someone who's there. But we're very grateful. Amundsen, Rose Hills, Parsons, UniHealth, Janine had to go, but Passing the Community Foundation are all very generous. But Marty sometimes will send around a list of an organization or the board of directors of a foundation, and it's a great help to us if you happen to know someone. And if you do know someone, or you yourself as a foundation, let us know. We've talked about volunteers and talked about our in-kind and talked about the money. 1.4 million is in stuff. But I could tell you that if we did some calculations that are done by national hourly wage, this or that, we get about $250,000 to $300,000 in payroll time from volunteers.
Wow.
Meaning we could not run the food pantry, we could not run the women's room. That's where the majority of the volunteers are, without volunteers. As Tim said, 100+ volunteers every week in the food pantry. Some of those, and they're volunteers. Some of them get sick or they go away or something happens. It's a very well-oiled machine, but that's just another aspect of what we're so proud of and what makes us, we think, a really special place. So last, I'll tell you, all of that is to say, we are in the strategic planning process. We just spent the last year or so involved in a deep process. I'm really grateful to Brett, our president, for helping to guide us. We've had consultants and our board and our staff and community stakeholders have been really engaged. We have a board retreat in a few weeks to look at where we're at for the first quarter of this 3-year plan. But I will say the big aspect is going to be, we're going to be looking to a capital campaign in the next 1, 2, 3 years. Let's say 2 years. Because as you've heard, we got no space. 444 on Washington is, I don't have to tell any of you people, is crammed to the guild. And so we are focused, Ryan, very much on maintaining capacity. The plan is giving us both a direction of what we want to do and very much a guardrails on what we are not going to do. And I'm taking that very seriously. We get a lot of good ideas. They sound good, maybe just not for us right now. But to have you be aware that we are in a 3-year plan process, and one of them is to be, please God, in a few years, we'll be launched a capital campaign so that we could have a new place to build a new campus for ourselves where we can all be together. And the food pantry has a little more space, the women's room has more space, and we're able to operate with a much healthier efforts. Our staff, people always ask me like, wow, it must be so hard, it's so great working with the homeless folks and this and that. Like my staff will tell me they don't want my job. I couldn't do any of their jobs. All those directors that you heard, they do the work each and every day. With the people on the streets in crisis, and they're amazing. I'm just honored to ask you all for money to help us to do that. But to be out there, it's a real honor. So any questions that weren't answered? If not, I'm the only one eating food, so I don't know what the problem is. But online, do we have anything? So this has been recorded, so if there's something you missed, wanna watch again, if it was really exciting and you wanna see it again. But as Mary said, word of mouth, tell your friends you were here, send your friends the email. If you're not, you're already on, all you people, but tell your friends to sign up. We send an email, we're very active. More people that get involved, the better. Thank you so much for coming. We're really grateful. Those online, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Yes.
That's what I'm finding out. No.